Greetings, bulls, ghouls, and non-binary fools. I'm your host, Captain Myenstein, and I'm escaping custody to kill a bunch of girls who really like getting naked for some reason. But when I'm not doing that, I'm here to stand there reviewing horror movies. If you can't tell, which you probably can't because I always dress like this, I'm getting ready for a slumber party. But before it begins, I thought I would review a little film called The Slumber Party Massacre. Very apt name. Gives me flashbacks. The film was released in 1982, smack dab in the middle of the slasher craze of the 80s. Rarely and notably for a film in the 80s, and even today in some cases, this film is written and directed by women. In fact, the whole series, this film and its two sequels, are entirely written and directed by women. Rita Mae Brown, a novelist and feminist, was the writer of this first film, and she originally wrote what was then called Sleepless Nights as a parody of the burgeoning slasher film craze that populated the early years of the decade. But upon filming, it was instead shot as a straightforward slasher flick called Don't Open the Door. Even then, the film still has a lot of humor, most of it funny. The script made its way into Roger Corman's hands, and this is my first time mentioning him directly on my channel, wow. And it eventually wound up in the hands of director Amy Holden Jones, an editor who cut together films for Joe Dante and Martin Scorsese, who ironically knew Corman. Corman agreed to finance the film under the pretense that it included the typical requirements of his films. TNA.
When you did a film for Roger, there were certain expectations.
Tits, butts, blood. I guess that was the way it went.
Nudity was more important to him than sex. And, you know, he has to sell the thing.
Holden Jones did so, and despite the criticism she gets for making such an exploitative film, she has fought back and made it clear that she does not care about such double standards.
But that's the kind of thing women always face, is, you know, it's okay for Scorsese, it's okay for Jack Nicholson, it's okay for Coppola, it's okay for Jonathan Demme to go do exploitation films with Roger Corman, but a woman's supposed to be above that. Well, I'm sorry, that's the way you broke into the business.
Props to her, especially since she had to turn down editing E.T. Mind you, E.T. made $792 million. I would feel kinda jilted if I were Amy, but hey, she sounds like she's proud of the film, so good for her. Despite its relatively low box office returns, The Slumber Party Massacre enjoys a very long life as a cult classic, and for good reason. It's the perfect campy slasher flick, cheesy, slightly self-aware, and feminist if you know what to look for. It kinda reminds me of a little show that I totally can't remember the name of. Is this film really deserving of its cult status? Let's find out in my review of The Slumber Party Massacre. The film starts in Venice, California, where our protagonist, Trish, wakes up and immediately gets naked for the camera. This film wasted no time with the nudity, I guess. Yeah, this sets a foreboding mood on the film. Roger Corman knows his audience, gotta give him that. Trish turns on the radio, which spews some exposition. Getting that out there early.
Our top story. Police are still searching for escaped murderer Russ Thorne. Thorne was convicted of the brutal slaying of 5 people in Venice, California in 1969.
The film's music at the beginning sets the campy tone immediately, and the score sticks in my mind after every viewing of this movie. Trish's parents are leaving for a trip, and I don't think they explain where they were going, but the entire point is to just have the characters alone and without adult supervision. When they leave, we're introduced to Mr. Content, who might as well be wearing a sign that says, "I'm a red herring" on his head. Content is played by Red Kennedy, who is one of the most eccentric actors I've ever seen. I mean, just look at this featurette on the DVD, which is dedicated solely to him. I want whatever he's on. The characters in this film are your average slasher fare, but they work well for the kind of movie this is. Rarely for slasher flicks, most of the characters are girls, and they are portrayed as real people with hobbies, like playing basketball, which leads to one of the most gratuitous shower scenes I've ever seen. Not one nude body, but multiple. Need I remind you, these are supposed to be high school girls. The camera feels like an actual peeping Tom, voyeuristically shooting the soapy butts of these girls. Even Amy Holden Jones can't deny the non-essential nature of the scene.
I find that the shower scene a little squeamish to watch because it's very pro forma. You can see by the way I did it that I'm like just hitting, you know, okay, you want it, here it is, here's the nudity, that's it.
Surprised that they didn't throw tampons at Carrie White. The girls are busy planning the film's titular slumber party, and Diane here, who looks 40, good God, talks trash about Valerie, who beat them in the basketball game. Oh, suck it up, you sore loser. Wow, I think Diane knows karate. Now, there are other characters besides the already established teenage girls. The first characters we're introduced to after the opening scene are 2 sleazy teen boys, Neil and Jeff, the most douchebag sounding names ever. They look way too old to be in high school, but of course, most high school movies cast 30-year-olds anyway. The boys are literally just there to be cannon fodder, only focused on one thing, getting their legs over. Hey, does them being killed by Russ and his drill make them gay? I mean, that's the logical endpoint of the film's theme. The boys get there 15 minutes later on in the film where they hatch a plan to get help when the killer attacks the house. Of course, it goes terribly wrong, but it's the thought that counts. One thing I dislike about all the characters though is just how many of them get off on scaring others. It's great the first few times, but the movie does it over and over again. Is this the movie's way to add artificial scares? So many of these people just want to be punched in the face. Amy Holden-Jones did inject some passive feminism into the film though, with a fawn person and a home repair person both played by women. This was done so the film wouldn't scare off audience members just there for the kills and nudity, and it's not too pretentious. Even though most of the kills are female, that is a given because most of the characters are women. Anyway, enough of all that sophisticated stuff though. Let's get to what we're all here for. The horror and the kills. The first kill of the film is 5 minutes in, the victim being the electrician. Wow, she went into that van really silently. I don't know about you, but if I was yanked into a fan suddenly, I would probably scream my lungs out. Probably just me though. R.I.P. whatever her name was. Hey, at least the killer now has his murder van. The killer in this film is played by Michael Villela, and he portrays Russ Thorne as a sociopathic man who kills for seemingly no reason. We are given no backstory for Russ, besides the fact that he killed 5 people in 1969, and that's just the way I like it. No backstory allows us to put our own fears onto the killer, thus making him a scarier villain. Fear of the unknown is a powerful thing. His preferred murder weapon, a power drill, lends itself to the sexual undertones of this film that are admittedly very obvious when you watch them. The framing of this shot left little to the imagination. If you didn't catch my drift, the drill represents the killer's penis. Obviously. Amy Holden-Jones purposely injected psychosexual themes in the film, stating that the most obvious metaphor is a virgin's fear of sex.
The central metaphor, I think, of Slumber Party Massacre, which I don't know if I even knew it at the time, is about, obviously, a virgin's fear of sex. You know, oh no, he's coming at me with that big thing, what's he going to do to me?
This gives the film a dirty feeling, like we're watching this man assault women, which we are. His booty chin was all I could remember from this film for a while though. This sort of reminds me of Halloween. There goes the obligatory reference, where Michael is essentially a man-child, a psychosexually repressed man who is seeking to recreate the fateful night in which he killed his sister. In this film, we don't know Russ's backstory, so our minds fill in the blanks, making it subtly scarier. The atmosphere in this film is really good. I love how isolating and self-contained this flick feels, to me at least. I don't know if I can describe it accurately, but certain horror films give off the feeling of watching it late at night in the dark, alone, and then whenever you think about the film, it feels like a fever dream. That may be just me though. After the basketball scene, one of the girls, Linda, played by 80s scream queen Brink Stevens, goes back inside the school to grab a book she needs, and is met by the killer. The ensuing chase scene is my favorite part of the movie, a brilliantly suspenseful and sublimely constructed scene. Of course, if you don't know how this ends, you're a complete idiot. Russ looks like a dork. A psychotic dork, but a dork nonetheless. Valerie, played by discount Mary Elizabeth Winstead, is at home babysitting her sister Courtney, who is supposed to be 13 but looks 20. Licking that lollipop makes her seem like a sex offender's fetish, and they are totally missing out on the tubular slumber party next door.
Cut it out, you
Valerie and Courtney spend the rest of the movie before the last 15 minutes just hanging around, watching scary movies, which does lead to some wicked cool editing humor later on, and reading Playgirl. Considering what happened to all the girls at the party, Valerie and Courtney should be very grateful they were invited. Also, did every single one of these kids' parents go away for the night? Sounds like a contrivance to me. My favorite thing about this film is the dark comedy, which was left over from the film's original status as a spoof. The funniest instance of this is when one of the girls, Jackie, is hungry and decides to eat the pizza the girls ordered earlier, only for the delivery guy to have been killed by Russ.
Well, life goes on after all, and eating makes me feel best. When I feel bad, and boy, do I feel bad.
I agree. When you're hungry, you gotta do what you gotta do. Spoiler time! Slumber Party Massacre is a cult classic film, and it is definitely worth a watch. So if you don't want the fixed ending spoiled, skip to this time code to avoid the driller killer. After most of the characters are killed, the only girls left are Trish, Kim, and Jackie. Valerie and Courtney are still at their house, but Courtney hears commotion coming from across the street and becomes suspicious. Against her sister's wishes, she leaves and walks over to the house, Valerie following after her. Inside Trish's house, the three girls are waiting for help when Valerie knocks on the door, and Jackie decides to risk it all and let her in, only to have her throat obliterated by Russ's drill bit. Her death twirl is quite majestic though. The remaining two girls bunker themselves in Trish's room, only for Russ to enter from behind. Oh, that double entendre. Valerie and Courtney enter the house, illegally I might add, and Courtney raid's the fridge.
Courtney, you're underage. Negative, but come on, let's go.
The blood squeaks. Valerie hides in the basement while Courtney hides under a couch. How high is that couch off the ground? Just as the basketball coach, who just now mentioning, Jana gets to the house after hearing the girl's screams on the phone earlier. After a minute of snooping around, Coach Jana finds Russ lying on the carpet, for some reason, a scene straight out of Scary Movie. Coach Jana is killed after her stomach is absolutely annihilated by the drill, and Trish slow motion runs into the room to stab Russ. Why is she holding the knife like that? Did her parents teach her nothing? Moving the action outside, the three remaining girls fight off Russ, with Valerie completing this film's sexual metaphor, effectively castrating the killer. Looks like he can't drill any more girls. Ha! Oh, that's gnarly. Good God. After a lengthy battle filled with Russ pimp slapping Valerie and Courtney, his reign of terror is finally ended when he penetrates himself on the machete. The amount of double entendres I've said is a crime. With Russ dead, the three survivors sit in shock on the pool deck, police finally on the way. Crazy how Courtney's the only one of these girls we follow into the sequel. The Slumber Party Massacre is a cult classic slasher film, and in my opinion, it is definitely worth a watch. Of course, the characters and plot are really bare bones, but you don't really need complex characters and plots in a slasher film. These will do. The consciously done feminist themes and sexual metaphors add a little flavor to this film, however, setting it apart from the standard slasher film at the time. If you want to watch this flick, it's free here on YouTube. I give this film a moderate captain's gift. Wait a minute, that's the same rating I gave the last two films I've reviewed. Did I do that on purpose? If you like this video, like it, but if you loved it, make sure you subscribe to me, Captain Myenstein. Hit those very important subscribe and bell icons so you never miss when I upload new videos. If you want to keep in touch with me, make sure you follow my social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Captain Myenstein. I hope your nightmares are plentiful, and I hope to see you again for another episode of The Captain Myenstein Show.